Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez definitively lied about what happened to her on January 6th. And I can prove it. So that's why I will say right now, as a statement of fact, Ocasio-Cortez lied about what happened on January 6th. Again, this is not my opinion. I am asserting this as a statement of fact, fully exposing myself to any libel and defamation should it come about. But I know what I'm saying is true because I have evidence of this. I also have some conjecture and some personal opinions, but I can definitively show you that AOC is putting out lies. Now, I did a segment on this earlier this morning. You may have seen it, and I didn't have all the details. In fact, I kind of got thrown off base by a journalist that I trusted and was in fact wrong. Earlier this morning, I tweeted that AOC had at least exaggerated her claims because in a video of the evacuation of the Cannon office building in D.C., where her office is, people are calm. Well, a journalist reached out to me and said that was the bomb evacuation, not the riot evacuation. And I went, oh, so they evacuated twice? They evacuated the Cannon building. That would make sense. AOC must have been in the joint session of Congress, right? On January 6th to count the votes, in which case she would have then left. So here's what I did. I deleted the thread. Now, the thread was still right, but it was important for me to take it down and then go through the context and the timeline of what really occurred to discover that AOC has definitively lied. And what I think she's done, AOC is using hindsight. She's using knowledge she has gained after the fact to spin a false narrative about what really happened on January 6th, to trigger and manipulate our emotions. Again, I'll prove this. Well, I'll show you that her story makes no sense at the very least, and I will expose at least one very important lie that she said. The main issue that I discovered going through the timeline is that in her own video on Instagram, AOC says let me slow down for a second. First, forgive me if you just don't care. Sorry, I've been racking my brain about this timeline because things don't add up, and I have to do a segment on it. I have to expose this. And for those that aren't familiar with the story, AOC claims that a cop banged on her door, was yelling, "Where is she?" And she didn't know it was a cop and she thought she was going to die. She said that we were evacuated because people were trying to infiltrate the building, a complete fabrication. And what she's done is that now that we're well past January 6th and almost everyone condemned the storming of the Capitol, she has used that fear of people, that anger that we have of people breaking into the Capitol, calling for blood or whatever, and she's focusing it on herself with a fabricated story. First and foremost, AOC was not in the Capitol building. The Capitol building is what was actually raided. Snopes came to her defense saying it's false to claim she exaggerated. Actually, I can disprove this. They do say what's true. Ocasio-Cortez wasn't in the main Capitol building where the House and Senate chambers are located. What's false? When the attack on the Capitol began, Ocasio-Cortez was in her congressional office. Not true. Which is located in a network of office buildings immediately surrounding the Capitol. And her office building was one of the two buildings which were evacuated. Okay, hold on. They say when the attack on the Capitol began. All right, well, that's an opinion statement. We don't know exactly what constitutes an attack on the Capitol, because around the time AOC claims this story was happening, the only thing that had happened was that the crowd of individuals had walked past the first barricade. That's it. This wasn't a fight with the police. This wasn't pepper spraying and batons. It was literally people pushing on barricades, and the police opened up the barricades and they walked past. It was the outermost perimeter. I do not believe it's fair to call that an attack. I could be wrong, however. I believe the New York Times does show that there were clashes. So, okay, maybe. Let me slow down. I am going to give them as much leeway as possible as I disprove what AOC says and definitively prove she lied, okay? So let's just say this. You know what, Snopes? Fine. Call it an attack on the Capitol. Say the whole day was. Fine. AOC wasn't in the Capitol building. No one breached the Capitol building at the time of AOC's story. Now, I want to tell you why this is important. In a story from Vox, quote, "I thought I was going to die. AOC's harrowing account of the Capitol Hill attack." Her live post on Instagram shows why we can't just move on. And here's a quote. "In those few seconds, she contemplated death. Quote, I felt that if this was the journey my life was taking, I felt that things were going to be okay and that I had fulfilled my purpose," she said, apologizing to the viewers for the tears that had welled up. My God, the sociopathy, the sheer psychopathic behavior of this woman. I'm shocked. My friends, the other day I talked about how I didn't care about her story and I didn't care about her drama, and I respected that she was scared. Now I know she's lying, definitively. And it was actually quite simple. All you had to do was watch the video to understand why she was lying. Now here's what they say. At 1 p.m. on January 6th, Ocasio-Cortez remembers trying to decide what she wanted to eat for lunch. All of a sudden, she started hearing a series of loud bangs on the doors leading into her office. She runs over to an aide she refers to as G, her legislative director, Geraldo Bonilla Chavez, who tells her to run and hide. She takes shelter behind the bathroom door just before the pro-Trump attackers break into her office and make it clear they were coming for her. The pro-Trump attackers? I just hear these yells of, "Where is she? Where is she?" This is the moment where I thought everything was over. I thought I was going to die. Soon afterwards, she said Bonilla Chavez told her to come out. A Capitol police officer was in the office to secure it, but she said something about the officer seemed off to her. He had no partner, hadn't identified himself. He yelled at her and didn't give them a specific location to take shelter. He was looking at me with tremendous amounts of anger and hostility. Things weren't adding up. I didn't know if he was there to help us or hurt us. Here's the important point. As I stressed to all of you, she says this happened at 1 p.m. The breaching of the outermost barricade took place at 12:53 p.m. So let's go through the facts. At 12:53, rioters violently overwhelmed the police and breached the Capitol's outermost barricade. Okay, so let me walk back my previous statement. According to the New York Times, they violently overwhelmed the police and breached the outermost barricade. They break through 3 more barriers, forcing officers back to the Capitol steps, where they now face off. At 12:58, Capitol Police in riot gear are seen arriving to reinforce the line of officers on the Capitol steps. At 1:03 p.m., Nancy Pelosi begins the joint session of Congress, where both chambers meet to certify the presidential vote. And there you have it, my friends. Oh, and I'm not done. There's a lot more. But AOC is claiming that she thought a pro-Trump mob broke through her door. She said, I was thinking they got inside. She actually says this. Now, I got a bunch of tweets. Let me make sure I get the actual right one. Let me pull up my Twitter account, and I'll show you where she says she thought they got inside, even though no one had even breached the building. All right, so there we go. Here's the tweet. I said at 1:01 p.m. in a building without security barricades and 11 minutes before Trump finished speaking, AOC says she heard banging on her door and thought it was them getting inside. But this is an hour before anyone breached the Capitol building. Not only was she not in the building, the story she told happened an hour and 10 minutes before anyone breached the Capitol doors. Now, so this journalist who messaged me earlier this morning, I recorded a whole segment on this. I ended up deleting it and then recording something different because I thought I was wrong. We talked and he told me, so I'll trust him on this one. The Cannon building where AOC works was not secured. It was not barricaded. No one thought, okay, so that was his statement. Now, my understanding of what happened, nobody thought breaching the Capitol was possible. There was not even security prepared to handle it. They sent out they had barricades, they had police, they had riot cops to stop the people from getting through. But no one, not I or anybody else, expected people to breach through the doors, except maybe the people who brought the crowbars. What made AOC think that the person knocking on her door was a pro-Trump group that had gotten inside before anyone had known it was possible they would actually breach the Capitol building, and she wasn't even in the Capitol building. She lied. Here's what's happening. It has now been a month. We all have fresh in our minds that people breached the Capitol. She is preying upon your assumptions. So when she says this happened, you assume the riotous mob was storming through the Capitol building and she was there saying, no, they've come for me. Her story took place at 1 p.m. She is lying about what happened. There's no way she thought the pro-Trump came for her. Her story is just not true. There's a lot to go through. I mentioned that ridiculous statement she made about, I have fulfilled my purpose. This is the emotional manipulation. I have the full video for you that I downloaded from her Instagram, and I've listened to it. She actually calls out the timestamps herself personally, saying it was now about 1:01 p.m. She told us the time. I don't know if AOC is, she's just crazy or what. I don't know why she told us what time this all went down, but it disproves her own story. So let me show you this. I have this Twitter thread from Carlos Hernandez. He's a food reporter. He made a Twitter thread of AOC's story. She says, AOC says at 1:01 p.m., all of a sudden, she hears boom, 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 and then she hears a huge violent bangs on her door. She says she was told to hide, run and hide. Why? Why was AOC told to run and hide when no one had gotten anywhere near breaching any of the buildings? Trump was still giving his speech. According to the New York Times, at 1:12, Trump ends his rally speech. So what kind of paranoid, delusional state are these people in when they hear a knock on their door, sure fine, a bang, 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 over and over again, and they assumed a mob of Trump supporters had broken in and were coming to kill them, and AOC says, well, at least I thought to myself I had fulfilled my purpose. Trump was still speaking. The crowd, the large crowd was still at the ellipse. Now, mind you, I know people had breached the barricades of the Capitol building. AOC claimed to Jack Posobik that people were trying to breach other buildings as well. That's so. What is she trying to claim with this? That the people who were breaching the barricades were trying to get in to her insecure, her building with no barricades. Perhaps. But it wasn't a riotous mob if that was the case, because it never happened. So what? Someone walked up and said, can I come in? And they said, no. They are public buildings. You can just walk in. You go through a metal detector. That's enough for me to say I believe that she's lying. But let's move on. I'll show you a couple more things. So I said at 1:01 p.m., AOC says this. I made this point. I have this tweet. AOC was evacuated from her office around the time the Capitol building outermost security perimeter was breached, but an hour and 10 minutes before the Capitol building itself was breached. Trump was still speaking. It seems likely that this evacuation was due to the bomb scare. But AOC said she thought to herself they got in. But this was literally right as people got past the outermost barricade and no one was near the doors. Not only that, but the Cannon building had no barricades. I then, of course, showed you, the tweet about, her saying they got in. So let me show you a few more things. For one, AOC, let me see if I have the tweet from AOC. Here we go. AOC responds to Jack Posobik. Jack Posobik says AOC wasn't in the Capitol building during her near-death experience. She calls this right-wing manipulation and then says this. People were trying to rush and infiltrate our office buildings. That's why we had to get evacuated in the first place. That's not true. Based on my understanding, and I will say this as a statement of fact, that is not true. I have done the groundwork and the research, and to the best of my understanding, they were evacuated due to a bomb threat. I had another journalist send me the confirmation. The Cannon building was evacuated due to a bomb threat. And I believe I have the post here. Mike DeBonis says, Capitol Police have ordered evacuations of two Capitol campus buildings, LOC Madison Building and Cannon House Office Building, both just across Independence Avenue from Capitol Hill, due to police activity. They say occupants should remain calm and move in a safe manner to the exits. If nearby, take enunciators on the way out. Close door behind you, but do not lock. Proceed immediately to your designated assembly area and check in with your OEC. This tweet went out at 1:26 p.m., about 26 minutes after AOC says the cop knocked on her door. Now, the reason why I believe it's fair to say this is absolutely not true and she's lying is that the joint session of Congress did not end until 2:30, a full hour and a half later. So you'd need to convince me that the crowd breached the barricades at 12:53. They then rushed to evacuate the Cannon building, sending people to the building across the street, which is also not secured. But Congress, the actual target of the riot, was not evacuated at all. Now, okay. Suppose it's fair to say that because there were no barricades at the Cannon building, they decided to evacuate people. But that's just not true. Why? Well, as I showed you, that went out at 1:26. But at 1:53, Mike DeBonis, he covers Congress for the Washington Post, tweeted on January 6th, update, all clear given for Cannon. All clear. The evacuation of the Cannon has been cleared, and any associated road closures will clear momentarily. Re-entry is authorized. The purpose of the evacuation was that they found pipe bombs. The breaching of the Capitol doors was not until 2:10. That means as the rioters were expanding and pushing forward and gaining more ground on the Capitol steps, they ended the evacuation. AOC is lying. That's not what happened. No one even got in the building at the time of her story. She's making the whole thing up. And I showed this video before at 1:30. When AOC is claiming she feared for her life, the people in the Cannon building were calmly walking around, minding their own business. And I pointed this out in the other video. Here's a dude scratching his head with his dog. I'm sorry if I'm rehashing a bit of what I talked about in the previous video, but this is a major update. I had no choice but to do it. My initial reaction was AOC was embellishing. Maybe she was scared and it was respectable. I then said, I don't care about the drama between her, Mike Tracy, or anybody else, or Jack Posobik. And then because people started telling me that I was wrong and my opinions were wrong, and I had a journalist reach out to me saying, your timeline is wrong, I posted this on Twitter and said, how is AOC scared when people are just milling about calm? And this journalist said, no, you're incorrect. This was the bomb scare evacuation, not the riot. And I went, oh, AOC must have been in the joint session. So when they evacuated the joint session around 2:30, her story must have taken place at that time. It's all my fault, to be completely honest. I should have just actually pulled up AOC's story and mapped out the timeline. Upon further research, I realized she made the whole thing. Okay, hold on, let me slow down. She fabricated key portions of this story. She is using hindsight. Now that we know what happened, we know the Capitol was stormed, to make it seem like her irrational behavior was related to knowing Trump supporters were storming the halls. I mean, look at what Vox even says. They say when just before the pro-Trump attackers break into her office, there were never pro-Trump attackers in her building ever. They certainly were no pro-Trump attackers in any of the buildings at 1 p.m. This is an outright manipulation by the media, running defense for AOC and pushing the lies and the narrative and the fake narrative that she is weaving. She wasn't in the Capitol. No one stormed the Cannon building, and it wasn't evacuated due to riots. She made the whole thing up. That's why we had to get evacuated in the first place. The attempts of attackers and publicly available communications show how they tried to gain access and share location info on finding members for physical harm. AOC, how did you know about their publicly available communications at the time it was all going down? If we knew they were publicly stating they were going to find you and they were looking for you and they had a plan, then perhaps they could have prevented this. But the police said there was no indication, so they didn't ramp up security. Mayor Muriel Bowser didn't want a heavy militarized presence. You can criticize the Capitol Police for being unprepared, but no, we had no idea. She says it's very damning and revealing the GOP is now digging both heels in a discrediting campaign. It's because they know they are implicated, so they are pivoting to, again, the classic abuse playbook of it's not as bad as they say. It was that bad. It's actually worse. No, it wasn't. On the day that this all went down, at around 1 o'clock, when I got word that protesters had pushed through the barricade and were fighting with cops, I was shocked. Absolutely shocked. Just that morning, I said, nothing will happen. Firmly believed it. Didn't believe anything would happen. When they got past the barricades, I was shocked. At 2:20 or so, I tweeted, my God, they have breached the building, or they have now breached the building, my God. And then following that, a few minutes later, I said, they're in I was like, oh my God, they're in the chamber. I did not believe it was going to happen. And I have been tracking this, and I've been accused of pushing, civil war conspiracies. I've warned about the escalation of violence, and even I did not think it was possible. Why would AOC think it was happening? Why would she say they were evacuated due to the riot? Because right now, the only thing we remember for the most part is the narrative of the riot, of the storming of the Capitol, not the bomb scare, not the calm and boring evacuation, where, look at this guy, Tom Fitzgerald, even shows that they evacuated Cannon into the Longworth House office building. He revealed their location, and people are just standing around. Why? The evacuation was due to a pipe bomb. They likely wanted to check to make sure the pipe bomb could be removed securely, and they don't need people locking doors and running away. If this was a breaching of the Capitol, maybe they would have wanted them to lock the doors. But the reason they said, everyone get out, there might be a bomb. They checked, they cleared it. You can all come back at 1:53. What happened between 12:53 and 1:53? The rioters breached the first barricade and then stormed their way up the stairs. So while the riots were getting closer to breaching the building, they were telling people to go back to the Cannon House office building. Where was AOC? AOC says she hid in Katie Porter's office, an office that in a building that was not breached. I just hope I get to be a mom. I'm pissed off. I'm pissed off because I ignored the story. I'm pissed off because I said, I don't care if she's scared, I get it. And then I found out she wasn't even in the Capitol building. And then I found out her story took place before the riot even occurred. She lied. That's the name of the game, man. That's what she does. Jack Posobik scratched the surface when he showed that her office building was across the street and far away from the Capitol. But it's much worse than that. A ton of news outlets ran stories saying that pro-Trump rioters breached the building, and they never did, and they had to issue retractions. It's still worse than that. I'm surprised nobody has actually broken down the timeline and called out AOC for the fact, the very simple fact, no one knew there was going to be a breaching of any of these buildings. No one thought it was possible at the time that Trump supporters would break into the Capitol. No one reported Trump supporters trying to break into the Cannon building, and they never did. Considering the building didn't have security, I think if they wanted to, they would have. AOC's story makes no sense on the surface because I started thinking to myself, even if she was in the joint session of Congress, what, she ran back to her office with her name on it? No, it's just a fabrication. I'm sure when the cop came to her door and banged on it, they were scared. Why did she run and hide in the bathroom? No one even knew what was going on. She tells this story about how she was on the phone at 12:45 ordering food. So she probably didn't even hear that people got past the barricades. She probably didn't even know what was happening. I thought Trump was still speaking. I had his live stream running. He was still speaking. Yet she knew in her heart of hearts that pro-Trump supporters, or rioters or whatever, were going to find a way to breach the barricade and then breach the doors an hour later. Here's the kicker. Congress remained in session. The House chamber was not evacuated until 2:40 p.m. But AOC is saying they were evacuated at 1 o'clock because people are trying to infiltrate the building and then allowed to go back in with no added security. Meanwhile, they were literally breaching the actual Capitol. And while, get this is a crazy thing. The New York Times says that rioters breached the House. And check this out. The first rioters reach a rear door of the House chamber where members remain inside. There were still House members in the House at 2:35. Representatives begin evacuating the House chamber at 2:39. That means they were still in session while the House was breached. Look at this, 2:26. The House goes back into session even with the mob in the building. And AOC lied definitively. Statement of fact. She lied. You know what? If you're somebody who doesn't care all that much about this, I'll tell you this now. I cover the stories that I think are important. And I read the news all day, every day, and I choose the things that I think matter the most. And a lot of people don't think this matters because she's doing it on purpose to get press attention. Well, this one was a pure passion segment where I needed to correct the record on my previous segment. And I needed to call out the absolute lie that AOC is putting forth about all of this. I'm going to say it one more time for you all to hear, and forgive me, but I just have to get it out. At 1 p.m., no one knew the Capitol building would be breached. No one expected it to be. There was no evacuation due to this. AOC was evacuated due to a bomb scare, which is legitimate. If she was scared because someone said there may be a bomb in the building, I can respect that, and I'm sorry that happened to her. But she's telling us she thought she was going to die because she thought, quote, they got inside. Why did she think that? The truth is, she didn't. There's no way she did, unless she's a psychic, I guess. There's no way she thought, oh no, they got inside. It makes no sense. They weren't trying to. There was no indication they were going to. Whatever. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, all those who did, and I'll see you all at 4.